Interesting. Okay, is this being recorded? Okay, okay, so I will continue. Okay, very well.
Okay. So
now let me ask a question. Why is it being recorded and how is it going to be used?
it's just going to be used as far as my Facebook presence.
So is this going to be on Facebook?
It's going to be on Facebook, and that's probably it. Because there's a private group called the Wine Heads that I
Okay.
generally post stuff to.
Okay. Okay. Very well. I mean, you know, it's a Sunday evening. I am in t-shirts and packing wine. So you got me at a time where I'm just down real.
Well, that's what we want.
Well, I have a reputation to uphold, so I usually have on some earrings or some makeup or something, but we'll proceed.
Yeah, all I know is I'm just happy to see you. I'm just happy to be able to converse with you. And my first question is, Theodora or Theopatra?
Everyone calls me Theo. I've been Miss Theo since junior high school, so Theo is my name that everyone calls me.
Okay.
Some lady said it was self-titled Theopatra, but actually some folks from Hollywood gave me that name and they said Theopatra, and I said, my name is Theo, what's that? And they said, you know, like Cleopatra, you're Theopatra, because we were working on doing a show that was going to, you know, follow me in the wine business, but unfortunately the producer got cancer and died before we were in pre-production, but we never made it to the airways. But that's where that name came from. But I'm Theo. You call me Theo, everyone calls me Theo.
Okay. Well, Theo, it's finally great to be able to communicate with you, because I've been in and around the Association of African American Vintners since like 2005, 2006. So
well, I've been a member since about 2004.
Okay.
Before I even bottle wine, I've been growing grapes since 2003. And I think I joined the organization in 2003, did the 501c3, the association nonprofit paperwork for them. I was the secretary for years and years. And I think I might still be the secretary, although I've been trying to give that job to somebody else.
Well, that was actually one of my questions, whether or not you started out with the vineyard first, then the winery. So basically you did. You started growing grapes first.
Yes, basically, you know, I am a Texan. I'm born and raised in Dallas, Texas. My parents were educators, but as a kid, my father, being the son of a sharecropper, bought 10 acres of land outside of Dallas. And being the only child, I was raised by my parents to, you know, be a debutante, which I was, but also to ride horses, rope cattle, and drive tractors. So I learned to drive on a tractor at the age of 8. I did post hole digging, I built barns, I roped cattle, I did all of those farming things. So growing up in Texas, going to the farm every weekend, I got farming in my system because, as my father said, buy as much land as you can because people can't take it away. And having grown up in a place where he saw his father pick cotton and barely get enough money to put food on the table, he was very much insistent on buying land and having something of your own. And so when I moved to California in the 80s to work as an associate at Littler Mendelson, the same firm I'm at today, I left for a short while to start the labor and employment practice in Oakland, and the firm reached out and said, we want you at the firm. If we need to open an Oakland office, we will. And so we opened an Oakland office back in 1995. And I was the managing partner and founder of that office, and we closed that in 2005. So I had a nice run as a managing partner of an office in a global firm. But I got introduced to the vineyard lifestyle because there were several partners in the firm who had vineyards, in Sonoma and Napa, and my law firm mentor, Barbara Deodoni, and her husband, Pierre, who I'm still very close with, had a vineyard out in Hillsborough, California. And back in the 80s, you didn't have faxes and emails and all these electronic means of communicating. So if you had a brief due to a partner on Monday and they were at their weekend home in Sonoma, Mendocino, wherever it was, you drove that brief to wherever they were. You let them read it and mark it up and get it ready, and you waited. And that's how I got introduced to the vineyard lifestyle, because I didn't drink wine, because my dad down in the farm used to pick wild muscadine grapes and make home brew. And muscadine is some nasty wine. Now, some people may love that sweet stuff, but you will never see a sweet wine come from Theophilus Vineyards, because I thought that's what wine was, and I didn't touch wine until I moved to California in the 80s.
Right. Well, you're just answering all my questions.
So basically, you know, my dream of having a vineyard got seeded, so to speak, back in the 80s. Well, California is not Texas as far as it comes to real estate. I was able to buy my first home in California in '88. And then I was able to buy my 20-acre property in 2001. So it took me that long to save enough money to buy 20 acres. When I bought my land, I inherited 2 sheep that couldn't be caught before close of escrow, and 8 chickens. I was fine with the chickens. One neighbor took 1 sheep for lamb and 1 sheep for a pet. So I finally got rid of that until the foxes ate the chickens, but I love the fresh eggs from the chickens. And then I planted the vineyard in 2003 because I had a whole lot of work to make the house habitable. That's the only way I could afford it. An old English lady lived in the house, and oh God, she had cats that ran the house when she wasn't there. So it took me 2 years to get the house habitable and prepare the land for planting. And so I planted in 2003, had my first harvest in 2006. I sold my grapes, and that's all I ever wanted to do, because the role models I had, they had vineyards, they sold their grapes to winemakers, and that was it. And that's all I wanted to have, and have a vineyard designation on a wine bottle. And that's what I did from 2006 to 2012. And in 2012, I picked grapes in the rain, and I had a new buyer, and that buyer had bought the year before and loved the grapes, had told me in March of 2012 that they wouldn't be buying for 2013 because we had a contract for 2011 and 2012, and you usually enter the contract for the next year sometime in the spring, because he had bought a Petit Syrah vineyard. And that was fine, because my first harvest I sold to a guy by the name of Mike Officer at Carlisle, and Robert Parker gave the wine made from my grapes a 96. That was my first harvest. So I didn't feel that I had a problem selling the grapes with notice. But when I picked in 2012 in the fall, I had to pick in the rain. And so I picked at like 22.5 bricks. That's the sugar level. And unfortunately, when I delivered those 8 tons of grapes to the then buyer, he rejected them all because the contract required that they be at least 24 bricks. And knowing that he had another Petit Syrah vineyard, he had said he would honor the 2012 contract, but it didn't meet the contractual requirement. So a lawyer got screwed by the contract. And so I write my own contracts to date. Okay, but you know, I continue to sell grapes, and I make half of the wines under my brand. So yes, I started as a vineyard winemaker, as a vineyard owner and grower, and I was forced to bottle in 2012. I bartered the wine. You may know Mac McDonald from Vineyard Cellars. Well, because I did not have the financial resources to make wine in 2012, because we had just come off of the recession. I invested in real estate and I lost my shirt and was up to here in real estate failures. I had no money. And so I bartered. So, and nobody, and Mac was one of the people I bartered with. He made half under his label and half under my label. And I had another local winemaker in Mendocino do the same thing. That wine won gold at Sunset Magazine, and ever since I've been bottling wine.
Wow, that's beautiful. That is just beautiful. Yeah, I met Mac, I think in 2007, 2006, 2007. Because our goal has always been to keep as many Black winemakers distributed in the state of Michigan. And
well, I want to talk to you about that because I, have folks that have reached out to me about distributing in Michigan, but Michigan is a very difficult state to do wine. Okay. And so I recently joined up with Vino Shipper to be able to ship legally to all of these states, but Michigan is an exception to Vino Shipper. And I also have various people in Ann Arbor who want my wines, but I want to talk offline, Chuck, about how if we can, because I think there's a market in Detroit for my wines. And, I have a lot of friends in Detroit. We have a law office in Detroit. When COVID is over, one of the things I enjoy about this is having wine dinners. I've got 4 places that have reached out to me through friends, or friends have reached out to me on their behalf to try to get wines in Michigan. But that's an undertaking that I just haven't had the ability to undertake because it's time consuming. The liquor laws are very challenging. And I read a little bit about you that you do some distribution. So I would like to talk about that offline.
Yeah, I basically connect you with the distributors because I know a bunch of them. And
well, I only want to work with fine wine distributors because we love our wines and we want to make sure that they are in the premium category because they are premium wines.
Correct. Well, again, we'll talk offline, but I know a couple of people that they would love your wine, and we'll talk about that offline. But I really want to get you here in Michigan because my primary wine job now is as a wine ambassador and facilitator with House of Pure Vin, which is a Black-owned wine shop here in Detroit.
Okay.
And she is focusing a lot on Black winemakers because she has some Victoria Coleman stuff from Lobo.
Yeah.
She does some Charles Woodson, some McBride sisters. I'm trying to get Andre Mack stuff in there. And I'm trying to get Vision Cellars back in the States so I can get Mack in there.
Okay. That's good. Well, you can help me get there because I think the Detroit market, the Ann Arbor market, if I get distribution there, I think I could make it worth the effort because, as a small grower, you can't be in every state because all of the licensing requirement. I have a license in Illinois to self-distribute, and I do self-distribution in Illinois. I'm at a couple of wine bars and restaurants. I do self-distribution here in California, but Michigan is not a self-distribution state, so I have to have enough volume to make it worth the effort to get licensed and maintain those licenses because they're not cheap.
Yeah, well, that's one thing I'm trying to also politically work with the new Democratic governor to get her to do what the Republican governor didn't do the last time, which was increase the number of liquor distributors, but also allow for, let's say if you are a importer of wine, you should be able to automatically distribute, and that doesn't automatically happen here in the state.
Yeah, like Illinois has a provision where if you produce under 2,000 cases, they do it by gallons, but I do everything in cases because gallons, I became a lawyer because I don't do math. But, under 2,000 cases, you can self-distribute. There in DC, for instance, I can self-distribute. There are some states, and if you self-distribute, that actually is better because you don't have, because the distributor takes probably 50 to 60%. And as a small producer, handcrafted winery, it is expensive to make our wine.
Definitely, definitely. And that's the thing about House of Pure Vin. We focus on boutique wineries, wineries such as yourself, because of the love we know that you guys put into the wine.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Bing, 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 bing. When you first started as a vineyard, what were your first plantings? What were your first vines?
Well, to answer your question, I started with both Zinfandel and Petite.
Right.
And I was told that I should plant both because Petite is a good mixing grape with Zin. So a person who would buy your Zin would likely buy your Petite, and a person who would buy your Petite would likely buy your Zin. And as a grower, that's what I did. Okay, I went to Davis, took courses on, a small vineyard, took courses in viticulture, took courses on the 4 seasons of growing grapes, so that I would know what I was know what I needed to know to manage the folks who were doing this.
Right.
Well, the Zinfandel in Mendocino County is a dime a dozen. So I was getting like 3,000 a ton for the Petite and getting like 1,500 for the Zin. So what did I do after 2 years? I field grafted everything over to Petite Sirah. And in doing that, I only have Petite Sirah, and that is my estate bottle. My Pinot Noir and my Symphony, I actually source from neighbor wineries.
Okay. Awesome. So since you only grow Petite Sirah, but you grew Zinfandel for a minute, which one is easier or more difficult to make wine from?
Well, Zinfandel is difficult to grow as well as Petite Sirah. So I didn't choose the easiest grape to grow. Merlot is pretty easy to grow, but I love the Petite Sirah. I mean, it's a big full body wine like I am. I'm a big full body woman, so I like big wines. I don't like wimpy wines. Zins are really good. I love old vine Zins. I have a few bottles of my home brew of Zin. When I had the Zin for the 2 years, I actually, self-bottle picked, did the old Italian decrusher and destimmer, put them in glass vats, put them in barrels, did hand bottling. It was great. But I think they're both very difficult to grow. Fortunately, where I am, the climate is perfect. It gets as hot as 102 degrees, but it also snows on the property. So we get the 4 seasons, which I think is good for the vines. And everyone who has touched our grapes has made award-winning wines. So it must be something about the land. Mike Officer at Carlisle made award-winning wines from them. I still sell my grapes to Carlisle, not Carlisle, but to Halcon Vineyards. Paul Gordon, they write about him and his Rome varietals. I was recently featured in, even before Black Lives Matter, I've been featured since in multiple magazines, but before Black Lives Matter, I was featured in Wine Enthusiast magazine as one of the growers and winemakers that is taking the Petite Sirah grape from a mixing grape to its own world-class single vintage. And I take pride in that because I planted these little babies, and I've always taken the position that great wine starts in the vineyard. And I'm happy to say that when it starts in the vineyard and we get it in the bottle, it is 90+ point wines consistently.
Okay. I think you mentioned some of your, or one of your mentors as far as starting the vineyard. Other than Mac McDonald, who else kind of helped you along in the process?
Well, as I mentioned, Barbara and Barbara Deodoni and Pierre Doney. Actually, her name is Day Odoni because she's of Odoni, but I think he's from Peru, and so there are some things that I don't understand of why she was Day Odoni and their last name is Odoni. But they actually adopted me back in the 80s. And as I said, she was my law firm mentor and my wine mentor. And so I would drive out to Hillsburg, take her briefs. They'd invite me to stay for dinner. They introduced me to wines because, as I said, my dad used to make old wine muscadine, and I didn't drink wine. I've always specialized in pleasure in the bottle. I used to make Wonder Punch back in high school, college, and law school, and 2 glasses of my Wonder Punch. You didn't need nothing else, honey. You know, so I've graduated from making Wonder Punch to making fine wine, but I owe a lot of it to Bob Lieber, who was another mentor who had a place up in Napa. And, you know, he and I used to do contract negotiations and bargaining down in Monterey. And so he introduced me to Chardonnay. From Chardonnay, I went to Cabernet, and then I went to Zinfandel. But Barbara probably was the closest person to me to sort of, when I had a question, I asked her in the law and into wine. In fact, their vineyard manager is the one who planted my vineyard back in 2003. He is also the one who turned me on to my next vineyard manager, who introduced me to Mike Officer at Carlisle, who then introduced me to my current vineyard manager, and has introduced me to a lot of people in the business. Of course, Mac McDonald, the grandfather of the African-American vintners, has been a mentor for me since I met him back in 2003. He pulled me out in 2012 when I had to bottle. You know, I was forced to bottle, I say, because I wasn't planning to bottle, but I'm happy I did because I've been having a fun time bottling and talking to people and making folks enjoy our wines, and just it's been a wonderful ride. But Mac, of course, is a mentor to many. He is someone who has the time, takes the time, talks to you. Phil Long at Longevity, who is now the president of the Association of African American Vintners, is a mentor who I look to for guidance. You know, I'm a control person. I didn't want to turn over my shipping to Vino Shipper, but when all of the orders came in June and I needed to be able to ship legally to all of these states, Vino Shipper was the choice that I had. And so thanks to Phil, he turned me on to that back at the end of the last year. So I was ready to go when, you know, all of these, you know, blessings happen. So, you know, I've had a few mentors along the way because all of us stand on somebody else's shoulders, I should say.
Yes, most definitely. Most definitely. So I'm guessing the COVID situation has impacted your business.
Well, it has impacted it, but in a positive way. You know, when COVID hit in March, I ran a SIP, shelter in place sale, where I offered free shipping because shipping is often an impediment to buying wine outside of California, because to ship when I started in this business, I was using a third-party shipper. And to ship a case of wine in New York was costing like $58 a case. Nobody's gonna pay $58 to ship a case. I finally, you know, got a contract with UPS and you know, was able to bring that shipping cost down to $36. But then you got, you know, the materials, you got the licensing and all of that stuff. And, you know, I'm a lawyer, but I'm not a wine lawyer. So you really have to hire compliance people for all of that stuff. So, you know, the reality is that by offering free shipping, it removes the biggest impediment for people buying wine. So from March until May, I had the SIP sale. and I was doing pretty good wine sales. I mean, they were double what they were last year for the same time period. And then with the focus on Black Lives Matters and buy Black and consciously buy wines from Black businesses, the business just, oh my God. In June, from late May, or all of June to July, it's just beginning to slow down. I was getting anywhere from 20 to 50 orders a day.
Whoa.
Okay. So I sold more wine in 2 months this year, June and July, than I did in 9 months of last year.
Whoa.
So I will tell you that business has really been booming, and I hate that it's as a result of losing our brothers and sisters to police brutality. But if this movement is going to have any real meaning, we have to sustain it and continue to consciously promote Black businesses. And, you know, I am involved in a number of efforts to support the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, to support Black artists who are suffering now, Black Chamber of Commerce in the Oakland area, the Association of African American Vintners. We have a scholarship fund for those who are interested in going in the wine business. These ventures, I think we have to continue to focus on and be conscious about how we spend our dollars.
Most definitely, most definitely. Because actually Lou Garcia just signed me up as a professional industry member of AAAV. So
yeah,
I'm just having fun talking to you guys and learning a lot.
Well, Lou's a great guy. Lou is a great guy. He's been the backbone. He's been our treasurer since at least 2002. And, you know, he is a very level-headed, very smart guy. So we are lucky to have him, and with Phil taking on the leadership as president, that has been a blessing. And of course, Mac, one of the founders, is just an incredible human being.
Yes, yes, he is. The issue of, since you started out growing grapes, the issue of climate change, how is that affecting, or is it affecting your Petite Sirah?
Well, it's hotter. And so for the most part, it is making the grapes riper sooner,
Okay.
which for me is a good thing, because my property is surrounded by fir and redwood trees. And so early on, we were picking in early November or late October. Now we've been able to pick either in late September or early October before the rains begin. So in many ways, global warming has helped us, not hurt us.
Okay. That's okay. Because I've heard you are my fourth winemaker that I've interviewed so far on Zoom in the last couple of months. And I've gotten a varied number of answers. And I think it's based upon
where you're located.
Where you're located. And again, when you're talking about being surrounded by trees, you know, the amount of actual sunlight and the heat that gets to your property is kind of, and I remember you mentioned the fact that the reason that you lost that one contract that one year was because of the rain and how it affected the bricks level. And if you're harvesting earlier, if it's getting riper earlier, your bricks have got to be higher too.
That's correct. But the beauty is, because I am surrounded by fir and redwood trees, we lose sunlight at about 6:00 p.m. over the vineyard. And in fact, while I was in escrow to buy the property, I hired a professor of viticulture, Rich Thomas, from the Santa Rosa Junior College, to come out and make sure the land was suitable for grape growing. That was before we closed on the property. And then after we closed on the property, I hired him and his son, who worked at a viticulture nursery, to come out and do environmental studies, look at the sun, look at how much sun we had, how long it lasts, do the soil samples to even determine what grapes to grow. Because quite frankly, I didn't know much about Petite Sirah before the studies determined that that would be the best grape to grow on my property because of the sun. And, you know, like Cabernet needs full sun, probably 12 hours a day during the growing season. Petite Sirah does not need 12 hours of sun, which is why we planted Petite Sirah. And when I initially planted Zinfandel, we planted it in the part of the vineyard where we got sun all day long, and we put the Petite Sirah in the other parts of the vineyard that didn't need the sun. So we have different you know, watering systems. We have the vineyard out in various zones, and so we manage it. And after all of these years, we are managing the vineyard pretty well to be able to pick in late September, early August to avoid the rains. I usually have a big harvest party in mid to late September. This year, obviously, because of COVID, we won't be doing that. And it's so sad because it's such a good time.
Yeah. Well, always, when I do my wine-related travel, people are always trying to get me to go in like May or June, and I keep telling them the best time to go is harvest.
Yep.
Because, you know, you get to see the process.
Yep.
And the process is just beautiful. Because when I was in Bordeaux and Champagne last October. So I was right in the middle of harvest, and watched the crush, watched some harvesting, actually watched them do pump over on some of the stuff that was fermenting. So it was just, I always tell people the best time to go to any winery is harvest.
Yep, that's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Yeah, because everybody, and I always say this, the people that don't think about it, they're the ones that go during the summer. I keep telling people, if you really want to know, if you want to actually have time to talk to the winemaker sometimes, getting them either tail into harvest is the best time.
Mm-hmm. It is. It really is.
But the best time to actually sit down with the winemaker is after harvest, when they're chilling.
That is, you got it, because after harvest is the time to really enjoy the fruits of the labor, okay? So, you know, it's a wonderful business. Because I work full-time as a lawyer, I miss out on some of the fun of being a winemaker. But as I said, you know, I've got 7 more years practicing law as I do now. And I have a good time. I mean, I take care of my 94-year-old mother in Dallas. I'm back and forth there. So that has been, you know, a challenge in many ways. You know, I'm involved in a lot, but the one thing that the good Lord has blessed me with is a lot of energy. I don't need a lot of sleep. I believe you can sleep when you die, and enjoying life while you have it is important.
Amen. Amen. Now, we actually have something in common, because I too graduated from law school. I only practiced for about a year, because here in Detroit it's real different. So I've been working with the court system for, this will be my 29th year this year.
Oh, wow.
And
And when you say the court system, what do you mean?
I am a manager in the court system. I actually work in the civil landlord-tenant division here in the city of Detroit.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just like you. I'm kind of sort of a part-timer in wine, but wine is my passion. And the bottom line is, Once I finish with the court, hopefully in 2 to 3 years, this will be my life. And as I told people, I was working the first 30 years, and the next 30 years I'm gonna be living.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've always say I work hard, but I've always played hard. So I like to think of myself as working and playing as equally in life, because I work my ass off. Don't get me wrong. I mean, like before you called, before we got this call, I was on another line because I have an aunt who just got diagnosed with COVID in Houston. So I had to break it to my mother. My mother's 94. She was in and out of the hospital in June. So I've been back and forth, and I'm an only child. So all of her health care responsibilities are on me. I had to get her 24/7 care. Whereas before she went in the hospital, she was living in her own home on her own. She was walking, warming up stuff. And, even though, there have been challenges, but, God is good, and we're blessed to be able to provide her 24/7 care. And I'm back every 2 to 3 weeks. And like I've said, this is my first week. This will be my first week here at home in California, since before Father's Day.
Okay. Well, I'm sending up prayers for you and your family. And like you said, you're strong and you don't need that much sleep, but I'm still gonna pray for you.
No, I didn't say I didn't need prayer. I said I don't need that much sleep. I need a lot of prayer. Okay. Now let me be very clear. I never said I don't need prayer. I said I didn't need sleep. But I need prayer and God's blessings. Let's be really clear.
I got you on that. I just want to let you know this has been awesome. I learned a lot about you, and I'm hoping that my listeners learned a lot about you as well. And I'm hoping that we can get you. What states are you in, or that can receive deliveries from you?
Well, right now I can ship pretty much to all states except for Michigan. Right now I can't ship to Michigan. But if you go to theopolisvineyards.com and place your order, we can get you your wines. What I'd like to do is get my wines in shops. I actually just looked up the House of Pure Vine, and I saw Charles Woodson there. I saw the McBride sisters. I saw Brown Estate there. So we want to get there. And so, if you put me in touch with a distributor offline, just shoot me an email. You have my email address. I can, and if you do an introduction to that distributor for me, then I will follow up with the distributor, because I would love to be able to do business in Michigan. As I mentioned, I have lots of friends. I went to Spelman College in Atlanta, and we have a whole lot of folks from Cass Tech who came and were my classmates. And one of my best friends here in San Francisco, who's a newscaster, is from Cass Tech. I will tell you, there's something about the water at Cass Tech.
I know.
That is like, there's something, because if you go to Cass Tech and come out of there, you can't help but be successful. And I'm a witness to all of that. I 7 miles. I got a lot of friends up and around Detroit and Ann Arbor, and so I think Detroit and all of Michigan is a area that I could do business with. And when COVID is over, I have no problem coming, doing a wine dinner. In fact, this was the year I was supposed to go to Ann Arbor and do a wine dinner in the summer, because I don't come to Detroit in the winter, because I'm a puss. I don't like cold weather, okay?
As you should. But no, we will be in communication, because I'll get you introduced to about 3 or 4 different distributors. And hopefully you can get in a bidding war and get some good deals.
Absolutely. Well, Chuck,
Um,
it has been a pleasure to talk to you. It's always good to see others that look like me in this business in all walks of life. I was part of a Zoom call with Wines Over LA with Tawani Price today. We had over 50 people on Zoom. We had 10 different folks, winemakers of color. It was very inspirational, and it's always good to meet brothers and sisters in this business, because as you know, we are still a large minority in this business.
correct, correct. And that's always been what I've tried to change. And I'm working on the consumer side, trying to drive people to you. So,
Well, Chuck, we greatly appreciate you driving consumers to us. And as producers, we plan to continue to make premium quality wine, because I don't want you to do business with me because I'm Black. I want you to do business with me because I make great juice, great wine.
well, all I've heard is great things, and I'm looking forward to tasting with you. How's that?
That will be wonderful. I look forward to the day we can go out on the Detroit River, have some wine. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
always love the Detroit Jazz Festival that usually happens in August.
Yes, ma'am. It's awesome.
Well, is it going to happen this year?
That is still up in the air, but I've got to double check. Something tells me no, but to be perfectly honest, we just had a social distancing music festival this weekend, the Detroit Music Weekend.
Oh, okay.
They put a band shell in a parking lot, and they had people separated in the parking spaces.
Well,
And
leave,
it looks like they
leave it
were
to
having a good
Detroit.
time.
You'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. But I have been to the Detroit Jazz Festival twice. I have friends who open up their house and have a backyard where we party. So I love Detroit because, except for in the winter, I don't like the winter. The summer in Detroit is a lot of fun. And I've, done legal work there. And my only caveat is I won't come from December to April.
Okay.
Okay, Chuck, it's been a pleasure talking with you, darling.
It's been a pleasure as well. Have a great evening. Talk to you soon.
Going back to shipping wine. Okay, take care.
Good night.
Good night.